Julia Lo Bue-Said is the CEO of Advantage Travel Partnership, a global leisure and business travel network. Julia, thanks for your time once again. Perhaps unsurprising that 1 in 3 of us, it seems, are going to cut holiday spending as living costs rise. And it was a fairly brief period of recovery, really, wasn't it, post-COVID for the travel industry, as we now then run into this cost of living crisis.
Absolutely. We go from one storm certainly to another. I think for me, the positive that comes out of this latest research tells me that actually 2/3 of Brits do want to travel. And actually what we are seeing, despite the cost of living crisis, is, the last thing anybody actually wants to do, having not been able to travel for the last couple of years, is to go a holiday. But we're seeing some changes, and clearly some of the behaviours and patterns of bookings we are starting to see very different. And the travel industry, is really trying to gear itself up to make sure it can accommodate some of these changes.
So that post-COVID demand, which could have been predicted by seemingly everybody except the airports and the airlines, and the government for that matter, that post-COVID demand is still very much in place.
Absolutely. We're really not seeing a slowdown. In fact, obviously we have half term at the end of this month. That's seen, huge demand for people to travel away for the week. And that continues. But what we are seeing is people are thinking about actually, do I go for an all-inclusive so I can budget better? Do I look at maybe taking shorter breaks or fewer breaks, but still going on my main holiday? And the other really important thing, particularly in a cost of living crisis, when every penny clearly matters, is thinking about booking in advance, because the further ahead you book, the much better the offers you can get. And travel agents are in the best possible position to try and guide customers through that.
Now, what sort of destinations are people likely to look at here? I imagine, given that the pound has fallen off yet another cliff, and that's before we get to Friday when the Bank of England asks for all of their money back, I imagine that America is not looking especially attractive at the moment.
Unfortunately not. I was out there last December and we were at 130 to the dollar, and you sense actually very good value. Out in the summer, if you were out there, it was getting less attractive, if you like. So it will feel a bit more expensive when you're traveling to the States. But again, if you do want to travel, and a lot of people actually, they don't really look at the exchange rate as to determining factor of where they want to go. But clearly it plays a factor. Turkey, very good value. That continues to be very strong demand there, as is Greece. You go to the islands or mainlands, phenomenal value there for families and travellers alike.
And that's because these are generally cheaper places anyway. I mean, it's not just the dollar against which the pound is plummeting. It's off a whole cent just in the last half day against the euro as well. So we are getting less money for our money. What would be your advice about changing money? I've not changed money for years. I just use a debit card or maybe a credit card if I can get a reasonably good deal on such. How would you suggest somebody uses the local currency most efficiently and effectively when they're on holiday?
I think it's a really good question. I think it really does depend on where you go. It really does. In some destinations, you'll get better for your you'll get more for your pound if you're changing. There's more value changing your currency locally. But generally speaking, in the vast majority of cases nowadays, you can take either a preloaded card or use a credit card, where lots of credit card companies now don't charge fees for using abroad, and you'll get a good exchange rate for when you're using that, and it's safer and it saves you having to exchange currency and then worry about changing it back again and losing money when you get back.
Now, the research we're looking at this morning also suggests that people are going to seek all-inclusive deals. I've never been on one. We've never been on an all-inclusive deal, but are they really all-inclusive? Are they the good value that they at first glance appear to be?
They really are. And again, everything is caveated where it depends on where you travel to. But in the main, you find that, all inclusives, again, I don't want to put Turkey at the top post, but, you look at places like Turkey, they generally are all inclusives. Everything is included. What you tend to find isn't included are the named branded alcoholic drinks, but local drinks are, and most people are quite happy with that. But in the main, you always have to watch that. If you go on a cruise, for example, most of what you get on a cruise is included. However, drinks may not be. So always best, again, book through a professional, check the detail in terms of exactly what you're getting for what you're paying for.
Yeah, we do sometimes find, don't we, sort of angry people in local newspapers will pop up saying how outraged they were. They were limited to 8 vodkas a day or whatever it happens to be on some of these all-inclusive trips. Now, you've mentioned travel agents a couple of times. I think, again, for a lot of people, the idea of going certainly to a high street travel agent is more redolent of the past. Why would you suggest a travel agency rather than simply booking a holiday yourself using all of the facilities online that are available?
I think online serves a purpose, and clearly it's great for research and great for those that want to book online. However, what we've absolutely certainly found is certainly throughout the last 6 months, as travel has resumed, it's become so complex. Even the most seasoned of travellers of us, there are so many complexities nowadays. Not only are we travelling in a post-pandemic world with COVID restrictions still in place in some cases, but post-Brexit. And actually, it's staggering how many travellers still aren't aware of some of the implications of Brexit, whether it's passport validity, etc. So a travel agent will absolutely make sure they can guide you through the process. What we have also seen, interestingly, is we've seen a surge in consumers that are using travel agents in a younger bracket, age demographic. So people are finding their travel agents, they are using them for peace of mind, security, financial protection, and they have such an array of experience and offers and a whole plethora of different destinations that they can offer. And the great thing is, in most cases, they are so well travelled that they really can give you a personal recommendation. So travel agents are absolutely coming into their own. We've seen it the last 6 months, and all the research we've seen is indicating that continues to grow.
That is interesting, because that would not have felt like the direction of travel a few years ago.
Absolutely.
No,
and I think you're absolutely right. And as I say, I think, online absolutely serves a purpose. But actually, in this day and age where we want certainty, we want security, we want to know there is somebody there that's going to help us. Everything is complicated nowadays. So travel is the one thing that can really take you to a dream destination, somewhere you've not been before, and you don't want it to go wrong, particularly when, obviously, we're all really concerned about the economic pressures that are facing households right now. On
COVID, you said we were post-pandemic. I really want that to be the case, and it does seem that most destinations now have very few or indeed no COVID restrictions. But I was in California as recently as March, and it was really striking that masks were necessary and evidence of vaccination was necessary even in diners and cafes, and evidence of a negative test to get into the country as well. All of that is loosening to a very great extent. But where are COVID restrictions, would you say, still onerous and necessary to consider?
I think we are definitely seeing them relaxing across the world. However, you go to Asia, they're only slowly starting to open up and starting to ease restrictions there, but that's still in place. Actually, Spain, on our doorstep, we have Spain that still has restrictions in place for non-vaccinated. You have to take a test if you're not vaccinated to go to Spain. So it seems quite crazy nowadays when we've learned so much about COVID and the pros and cons of vaccinations and restrictions and the lack of benefit that they really do provide, particularly for travel, that so many destinations still have restrictions. But they are easing, as you say, but you have to be really aware that these destinations can also bring restrictions back in, and we've got to be mindful of that. But there are still restrictions that the Asian countries are slowly starting to ease them, and that's probably where we're seeing the bulk of restrictions still in place right now. Because
the point of vaccination as it relates to travel, it's not just about having a piece of paper or a mark on an app that you can show. Vaccination has made travel possible again in so many ways by massively limiting the severity of the disease. That's the point. It's not a box-ticking exercise, is it?
No, it's not, and absolutely you're right. The vaccination dividend, if you like, that we had in rolling out vaccinations in the UK in particular, played a part in helping us to ease restrictions. We'd all have liked it sooner, but at the point when we were able to, and it's allowed and it's enabled travel across the world. But I think as we enter the winter months, there may be some more discussion around what do other countries do regarding COVID and, are restrictions required? But hopefully we're past that now, and any measures that are in place will be very limited.
Sure, Julia, thank you very much. That's Julia Lo Bue-Said, who is the CEO Advantage Travel Partnership, which is a global leisure and business travel network.